So this session will be recorded and I'll post the recording online. And about an hour after we're done, you're going to get an email with the link to the website where all this information is, as well as where the recording will be posted once I can get it up there, and all that good stuff, as well as an evaluation form. So, all right, I think we're ready to get started. Thank you all for coming. As I mentioned, please send me questions in the chat box. I do also have the live transcription running, so if you find that transcription to be helpful, you can go ahead and turn that off. And if it distracts you, you can go ahead and turn it on if you need it and turn it off if you don't need it. Sorry. But it is there if you would like it. And I will try to speak slowly enough so that the AI can keep up with me. It's not a real person trying to type, it's a machine. So sometimes we don't articulate and enunciate well enough. But we are here to talk about programs, how you're going to count them going forward for the annual report. There are a lot of new questions this year from IMLS in our annual report. So we're specifically here talking about programs, activities, a nice little spreadsheet, and how you can track them for your own purposes, as well as your reporting purposes in the state annual report, in the summer reading report. So that's why we're here today. There are other changes to the annual report coming down the pipe, and I have a totally separate webinar about that. I had one yesterday, and there's a couple other same sessions of that content coming up. So if you are interested in a more holistic view of the annual report, that's a good one as well. But specifically today, we're talking about programs and activities. And I do want to always start these webinars and workshops by reminding everybody of the difference between the state annual report that you send to me, that I send up to IMLS for a national picture, versus your own reports that you create for your library and your stakeholders and funders. So the big state report that you sent to me has all kinds of data in it. It's a huge holistic picture of your library that adds to the big picture for the country. But it's all about finances and programs and circulation and collections and reference and all of the basic contact info, as well as staffing. So it's a really big report. And most of the questions are shared nationwide. They come to us from IMLS so that we're all asking the same things and being able to compare in similar ways. And because it's a national survey, that annual report can take some time to change. There's a cycle of maybe 2 to 3 years now for how questions get introduced, how they get talked about and approved and rewritten, how they get vetted by some testing agencies, and then they finally show up on the national annual report. So when there's not a pandemic, it can take a while to make these changes. Obviously, last year when we had COVID happening, IMLS scrambled and had some very fast questions that they added just to kind of get a census of libraries and what was happening. So things can happen quickly if there's a pandemic, but in general, it's a slower process. The other lucky thing is that with the big annual report, each state can add their own questions for our own local purposes. And Connecticut absolutely does that. And going forward with this year's annual report form, there's a new column in there so you can actually see which questions are national questions, which ones kind of feed into a national total, and which questions are specific to Connecticut for our own purposes. So that's something new. We might see it in a couple screenshots today, but it's just a kind of a heads up for you guys. So that's the big state annual report that you send me. And then in comparison, your library reports are anything you want them to be. You can collect infinite numbers, and I hope that you are, particularly with regard to reference questions, those kind of transactions, all of the volunteerism that your people are doing. There's so much happening at your library that doesn't get reported in the big state annual report. So I hope that you are tracking that data and using it for your own purposes, perhaps to advocate for yourselves for some more money or some more staff or however that works for you. But what you can do with your own report is really wonderful. And it's completely under your control, which is lovely, right? So you get to tell your story with your reports. So that's really the distinction between these two. And sometimes the big annual report data can feed into your reports and comparisons. So they do work together. But just as you're thinking about these things, think about, okay, what do I need for the big annual report or even the summer reading report? And then what do I need for my own library and how we tell our story at our library? Okay, so here we are talking about programs today, and I want to remind you of the definition of a program from IMLS. So my spreadsheet tool that I created that we're going to talk about today uses this definition because this is what we're reporting up to the public library survey, and we're really looking for consistency in how we think about programs. But it's about being a planned event. It's not an impromptu thing. It's really scheduled. It's thoughtfully planned. There's staff engagement and involvement. There's a group of people, theoretically, hopefully more than one, who are attending. And you're really providing information to those participants, whether it's about the library or a completely different topic. Could be libraries, library services, library tours, any other subject that you might want to cover. Programs do not include activities that you're delivering one-to-one, right? So programs are specifically about group engagement with library staff, and activities are more potentially one-to-one or done self-directed on my own. So these are some things that you want to make sure in this last bullet point that you're not including as programs. Things like literacy tutoring, that may fall into a totally different category. Maybe you think of that as volunteer work that happens in your library. Book a librarian sessions are going to be reference transactions. Services to homebound, that may be another thing that you're keeping track of if staff are doing it or volunteers are doing it. Resume writing assistance sure sounds like a reference transaction to me. Likewise, homework assistance, mentoring, that may be just something that you're volunteering to do. So as you go through using the spreadsheet, really think for yourselves, okay, is that actually a program according to IMLS, or is this maybe a self-directed activity that we're going to talk about as we go forward? Here's the sort of second half of the program definition. Make sure that you're counting all the programs that your library sponsors or co-sponsors. And I think co-sponsorships are going to happen more often as we go forward with online programming, that libraries may be sharing some costs for presenters and bringing in more people because there's no capacity count, right? You don't have a fire code violation if you pack the room. You can put as many people as you want in your Zoom webinar. So those co-sponsorships may be happening more often. Also, make sure you're not including programs that are sponsored by other groups that are just using your meeting room for their get together. And that might be an occasion like the Girl Scouts who use your meeting room for a recruitment activity, Rock On Girl Scouts, but that is not a library program. You get to count that in a completely separate question in the annual report as use of your meeting room. So make sure that you're keeping separate the things that the library is sponsoring or co-sponsoring and things that other people are sponsoring that just sort of happen on your premises. And as always, if you're offering your programs as a series, maybe a story time that goes over an 8-week session, go ahead and count every single one of those as its own program. Hopefully you've been doing that and you'll continue to do that. Oops. So here are some examples of actual programs. So if you do any of these things or something like these things, keep in mind that these are programs. And story times can happen anywhere. That's a program. If you're giving a presentation about your library resources at a school, counts as a program. Likewise, any tech or gaming clubs, summer reading events, these are all great examples of programs, and you're all coming up with a million other examples every single day. So keep in mind what's a program, and then this slide, what is not a program. So remember, it's those one-on-one activities that are not programs. There's something else. Feel free to count them somewhere else on your own spreadsheet or your own clipboard, but don't include them as programs. Likewise, those self-directed activities that have been booming this year when we couldn't get together as a group in person, those are not programs, they're self-directed activities. And you'll see on the spreadsheet, they got their own separate little category. You can include them as much as you want, but keep in mind those are self-directed activities and not programs. And some typical examples this year have been those take and make kits that have really been fabulous, and maybe you put together like 50 of those or 60 of those or however many you can get, and they go like hotcakes. So that's a great activity, some grab and go thing like that. And maybe even once we're able to get back together in person and the libraries are opening up, you may have sort of a drop-in craft that's available in the children's room on Saturday mornings where parents could just come and do it or not do it. And that's like, again, a self-directed activity because you're not leading that craft. You're really just providing the supplies and the space, and they can come and do it anytime they want to. So that's kind of a drop-in self-directed activity. So that is not a program. Likewise, if you're just signing people up for library cards, whether that's at the farmer's market or the town fair or the fishing pier, wherever that is, library card signups aren't programs. It's another kind of outreach or outward facing service instead. So those are things you'll want to keep in mind about what are programs and what are not, and what are self-directed activities. There's a ton of information about this and all of those examples, both online on the website and in the spreadsheet tool. So you'll have those reminders wherever you want to look. All right, so this year, there are some new program formats from IMLS. They've been seeing all of the dynamic work that libraries have been doing with programming, not just last year and the year before, but for several years now. As we see circulation declining, both in Connecticut and across the country, and so many other things declining, programs have always been the shining star, and that graph is going up and up and up. So IMLS picked up on that, and they started really breaking apart, pulling apart, kind of making a lot more granular all of this data that we're collecting about programs. So I think we used to have like one question per age group about programs, like number of programs for this age group and attendance at programs for this age group. And now it's like huge. So that's why we have a tool, hopefully to make your life a little bit easier. So what IMLS came out with this year is really pulling apart the in-person things. So in-person is what I think we had been familiar with for so long, that we would all get together kind of face to face in the same space, and we would be all, kind of sharing that same air, which we hadn't been doing for the past year or so. So remember, in person is what we've traditionally been doing. And now IMLS is saying, which ones do you do on site and which ones do you do off site? So on site is basically anywhere on your library premises. So whether that's in your storytime room, your meeting room, whether it's in your parking lot, on your lawn, on your roof, on your patio, if it's on the library property, it is on site. Then you might think, okay, off site is anywhere that is off the library property, right? So that could again be the beach, could be senior center, community center, anywhere that is not your library. Start counting those as in-person, off-site. And I think as we start tracking those, we're going to see those become more popular as well. So two different in-person options. Then we've got the live virtual programs, what we might think of as synchronous programs. And those of us who took maybe some online courses are kind of familiar with the synchronous versus asynchronous concept. So synchronous is you have to tune in at the assigned time every week, every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock in order to see that program, versus asynchronous or on demand, where you can tune in anytime and get that content whenever you want it. So those are now the distinctions between virtual programs. So you'll want to keep track of, is something a live virtual program, like a Zoom event where we had everybody there on Tuesday at 7 p.m. to hear the speaker? Or was it a pre-recorded thing, maybe my story time that I recorded ahead of time and posted online for people to view? So those are the two different program formats going forward for virtual programs. And the way we've set it up is you're going to count a program only once. So you're going to pick which of those formats it is, always deferring to the in-person version first. So say you offer an in-person on-site program. We had a fabulous piano concert. We stuffed 100 people in the room and we had so much demand that then we streamed it live on our Facebook page. Awesome, right? So you're going to count that as an in-person on-site program because it could not have happened without that. And you'll count your attendance at your in-person on-site program, and you'll get to count your attendance and views of the live virtual program and any recording that you post. But you're going to count that program only once because it only happened once. So those are our program formats. And I'm sorry, I'm going to jump back at the chat and take a look at some of the questions here. From Jerry, what about grab and go, where they grab the materials, but then they attend a Zoom to make it together? That's an excellent question. What I've been advising people is to enter that as two separate things on your spreadsheet. So first, you're going to enter a self-directed activity for the grab and go kit, where you had 50 participants because you had 50 kits and they all got picked up. And then you're going to have a live virtual program for the 28 people who actually showed up to do it together. So I recommend that you enter that as two separate things on your program and activities spreadsheet and really pull it apart that way. Jerry, yep. Yeah, so Catherine, that's an excellent point. If you can count heads while the thing is happening live, you get to count them as attendance. And if you have a recording that people are watching afterward, you're going to count that as views. And we'll see that on the spreadsheet. Okay, Elizabeth, what's the difference between asynchronous programming and a grab and go? To me, these both take planning, right? Yeah, of course they take planning. Of course they take time. But you'll notice that when we look at the definition of programs, staff time is not a factor on whether something is a program. Everything we do takes time and planning, like whether it's collections management, whether it's circulation, everything we do at libraries takes time. But that time is not part of the portion of, is not part of the program definition. So what makes a program is that specific definition. It's a planned event where a group of people are coming together with engagement with library staff. That makes a program. A self-directed activity is something I take home and do by myself. So yes, of course you put time into it, but you need to really think about what the definitions are distinguishing between a program and a self-directed activity. Okay, Kira, your question, what about a recorded Zoom event in which people tune in live and then have the opportunity to watch the recording after the fact? You can count the live viewers. So in the spreadsheet, you can count both the live viewers in one column, and afterward, you can actually count the people who watch the recording afterward on demand. You can actually fill that in on the spreadsheet. We'll take a look at what that looks like. I think I actually have a piano concert example of what that looks like. So you can count those and it'll all come together in the totals. Okay, the new spreadsheet is available. Yes, we will take a look at it. I posted the program tracking spreadsheet. I had a little bug that I discovered. So if you downloaded that spreadsheet prior to, I think, May 27th, you'll want to download it again, but we'll take a look at it. All right, fabulous. I love that you're paying attention. Thank you. I love your questions. I love how you make me think. This is very, very cool. Okay, so looking at audience age, usually we count these ages. We have been using these breakdowns, but there's some clarifications and additions. So IMLS wanted to separate out the children's ages because they wanted to look at that 0 to 5 age group, really thinking about pre-literacy and how that feeds into early education. So they picked that new subset, and then said there's also the children ages 6 to 11. So where before we had 0 to 11, now we're breaking that into two separate groups. don't stress out, right? Like, okay, if you've been only counting 0 to 11 for this past year, it's okay, because the annual report this year is going to smush those children together. I just need to give everybody a little time to get used to the new ages, and I'll phase in those extra questions next a year from now when we do that report. But this is kind of getting you used to these new subdivisions. Also, IMLS clarified the ages for the teens, that's 12 to 18, and then clarified that adult programs are ages 19 and up. And then there's sort of the catch-all, what IMLS calls general interest, which I like to think of as intergenerational or family or all ages. So that might be a chess club where you've got teenagers and older people in there. Everybody, it doesn't matter what your age is. Another family program might be if you're doing summer reading programs and you're having music on the lawn. That's a fabulous family program or intergenerational or general interest type of program. So just think about who your audience is intended to be and count all of those people. So as we always have been doing, if you're offering a story time for 2 to 3 year olds, you're going to count the kids and their caregivers in your attendance. That's going to be your total attendance for that particular program. Great. Okay. So attendance with your in-person programs, you're going to count them the way you always did, right? You're counting heads, or you're counting faces, or you're counting butts in seats, or something like you're counting actual people. Good. And then with your live virtual programs, these are the synchronous ones where we're all getting together at the same time. Try to count the number of unique viewers or live viewers, and that terminology may be different depending on what platform you're using. I do have a spreadsheet that will guide you on those platforms that we're going to talk about. And in some cases, you may be able to ask people and say, hey, can you just tell me how many people are on your end who are watching the story time? Or just let us know how many people are here in the room. If you can't actually count logins or faces, just get your best guess, right? Whatever you can grab while you can. And if you are looking at a pre-recorded program, so perhaps a story time that you recorded ahead of time and posted for viewing, you're not going to count attendance, but instead you'll count the number of times that recording was watched, the number of times it was viewed, and that's a separate column and category. So we'll do that. Randy, I'm going to get to your question about reporting the views and the dates on that and how that has changed. Sneaky teaser. Oh, and here we are on this slide. So with views of pre-recorded programs, these are things that your library has produced. Please do not count a share of a Facebook post of some snazzy museums video, right? That doesn't count as one of your programs. I love your ingenuity and your creativity, but that's not a library program. That's just something you are sharing. So what we're looking at here with pre-recorded programs is content that was produced and recorded by the library. And these are, again, the on-demand videos. So you're looking for the number of times people actually click the play button and watch the video, whether they watched it for 30 seconds or a minute or however long, but they're watching the video, not that they saw a post about it or engaged with the post, right? So be careful about your terminology and what you're counting and what you're checking. You're looking for the people who clicked play and watched the video. And now this next bullet point, it's in bold and it's in red because this is a change. IMLS now says count the number of views only after 7 days and then stop for the purposes of reporting for the annual report. So again, this is a big change. We had been counting as of June 30, the number of views. Now IMLS says count them as of 7 days. So not the end of the month, not the end of the year. Please do not freak out, okay? Please don't freak out. Let me go to my next slide. If you had been counting the number of views as of June 30th, send me that, all right? Or as of the end of the month, do not worry about this 7-day rule for the past 11 months, all right? Because you didn't know there was a 7-day rule for the past 11 months. That's a new rule. count, you know, from now going forward, count at 7 days. And particularly as we get into the new reporting year on July 1st, start counting after 7 days. But I will take whatever numbers you have me for that you can send for your views as of this fiscal year and this reporting year. So don't stress about it. Please don't stress. Send me what you got. We'll figure it out. But this link is a fabulous Google Sheet that other state data coordinators have pulled together using their fabulous expertise about where you can find all of these metrics on different platforms. So say you're doing a Zoom meeting, it tells you where to find the number of live people and then how to look at the number of people who watched the Zoom cloud recording, or how to find the people who watched it on YouTube. So there is some guidance for how to get these numbers. And IMLS picked 7 days, because they had to pick something, right? And they felt that I think 7 days was a more manageable count than say 14 or a month. They also felt that there were some existing measurements or metrics within some of the platforms that sort of lent toward the 7 days count. So that's why they went with that number instead. So, again, going forward, we'll work on that. And again, to reassure you, IMLS knows that it takes a couple of years for these questions to sink in, for us to really get the message out to you guys, for you to start implementing those changes in your own systems, and that it can take a while to get data that's accurate. And they count on that, right? So they know that the data that we're going to get this summer is a little wonky, right? Okay, not just because it was a wonky year, but because all these questions are new and it's a complicated system. So it's okay, don't stress about it. Send me whatever you can, we'll do our best with it. So here is a little screenshot of what this will actually look like on the annual report form. And this is the snippet of the teen section. And the questions are arranged by age so that the teen librarian can go in and fill these in, and the children's librarian can fill in her section, and the adult services person can do that, and all the totals will add up correctly. But you can see on the very left-hand column, here's the new column for whether a question feeds into the annual statistics, the national statistics, or whether it's an actual national question. So IMLS specifically wants me to report what they call the number of synchronous programs for young adults. And in order to get that number of synchronous programs, I need to ask you, tell me about your in-person on-site and your in-person off-site and your live virtual, because I'm going to add all those up, and I'm going to use that data to give you those charts that we've been able to give you in the past. So as we go forward, we'll be able to really provide some robust data internally in Connecticut about programs for various ages and formats. So I think that's going to be fun once we've got enough of a body of information there. But you can see how it is. The first you'll respond the number of programs, and then you'll fill in the attendance and the views of programs. So that's what they'll look like on the report form itself. Okay, so everything up till now was talking about programs, and now we're talking about self-directed activities and what that means. So this is something that I created in Connecticut and that other states are using too, because these activities have been so popular over the past year of the pandemic. And I describe it as something that's provided by your library staff for the patrons. It may be an occasional thing, but the self-directed activity is provided without the expectation of staff interaction. So in most cases, people are taking it home and doing it on the kitchen table on their own without staff interaction. Often in recent years, it's been happening at home, but it could even happen in your library on site. So that's a self-directed activity. And again, you'll report those activities based on the same age ranges, and we'll report number of participants instead of attendance in those age ranges as well. Okay, I see a question here. F means feeder. Yes. Sorry, Brandy. I couldn't come up with a better abbreviation of 1 or 2 letters. Um, so yes, our abbreviations are US for a national question, CT for a Connecticut question, and then F is a sort of a feeder question into the national survey. Yeah. And then the US questions go to IMLS. Yep, totally. I love it. You guys are doing my job for me. Thank you. Oops. And this, yep. So this is a screenshot, and you'll see here that first column. These are all Connecticut questions. IMLS does not yet have a place to report these self-directed activities on the national scope. However, these have been crucially important to Connecticut public libraries. So we're going to start capturing that data proactively, and we're going to be ready at some point when IMLS wants to capture this. We will have the data to that we can start feeding them. So we're going to grab it. I'm going to start putting it in your reports so that these will be things that you can use as you're telling the story of your library, particularly over the past year of the pandemic. Okay, so finally, half an hour later, we're ready to talk about this magic spreadsheet. Phew, thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate your patience. So just to reassure you, this Excel tool is exclusively for you hopefully to make your lives easier as you are filling out the annual report each year and as you are filling out your summer reading report that you're going to send to Kim in the fall. You don't have to use it. You can use whatever you want. You can keep little hash marks on a sheet if you want to do that. Totally up to you. But I recognize that all of these new questions represent a significant reporting burden for your libraries, particularly in libraries that offer a lot of programs, right? Like if you've got a very robust children's room and teens program and adult program, like you may have programs coming out your ears every single day at your library, and that's a lot to manage and a lot to keep track of. So my hope is that this spreadsheet will help you with that. It's something I made up, so it is flawed. It can be developed, it can be changed. And I hope that as you use it, you'll give me your feedback on it for potential improvements or things that don't work for you. I can tell you right now, I do want to add some improvements that will help you get monthly stats so that you can report those up to your board and your stakeholders. There's a way I'm going to show you where we can do that with filters, but I want to try and automate that in version 3. So within the spreadsheet, which we are going to take a look at, there are some options. If you really do want to keep track of things manually, I created a version that you can kind of print out, and it will keep you on track with the same sort of program formats, whether it's in-person on-site, in-person off-site, live virtual, and it will help you track attendance in the right places and participation in the right places so that you can add them up at the end of the month and grab those numbers yourself. So there is a template there where you can print it off, put it on a clipboard, and write things in manually. Another option, the one that I recommend that will hopefully make your life easier, is to use the track in spreadsheet option, where you're just typing right straight into the Excel spreadsheet and all of the totals calculate automatically for you, removing that need to do math, which is not always our strong suit. So if I can automate anything and everything, that's what I'm headed for. So there is that option. All right, I double checked the chat, answered all your questions. So we're actually going to hop out of that presentation and go right over here. So this is the LibGuide and the website where all of the annual report information is. I'm going to send you that link, as I mentioned, in an email around 1 o'clock today. So that's going to send you to this page. If you are ever on our LibGuides, which are dense and deadly, and you're trying to navigate there, you're going to look under services. This is where most of the IT services are. You're going to pull down to library statistics. Then you're going to see all of these tabs up here. There's a ton of information here. You're going to grab annual report, and then that's going to feed you into a few more tabs here. So once we get the 2021 annual report form, it will be under this tab. And I'm going to launch that in mid-July as usual. Then next, right here, changes to the report. If you're curious about all the other questions, they're there, but we're really here for the programs tab. So right here is the spreadsheet we're going to take a look at. As I mentioned, I revised it last week because I found a bug. So if you had downloaded this spreadsheet prior to even, let's say, May 27th, then I recommend that you download it again and copy and paste your data into the new version so that you can sort it. I realized after I entered a lot of data that it wasn't going to let me sort all that data in a way that I wanted to be able to get my monthly stats. So I think it may be an important feature for you. So I do recommend that you re-download if you downloaded that earlier. Let me see. This tool is provided for your convenience. So right here, right below the Excel spreadsheet, these are the slides from our presentation today. So if you want to revisit anything, they're already here for you as a PDF. I'm going to post the recording right here instead of the register link. It's going to be a recording link, so that's there. But as we go down, here are these reminders about what format you're going to use, what age range you're going to use, how you're going to count attendance or views. And this link right here, let's click on that. This handy guide is a Google Doc that my fellow data coordinators put together. So say you're trying to figure out how many views did I get of that video I posted on YouTube. I need to look at the video sharing tab right down here. Okay, so I posted it on YouTube. It wasn't live, it was a recording at the time. And here's the terminology that YouTube uses for that thing. And come on, you. Here's where you're going to find that particular metric on YouTube. The instructions as of, I think, a month or two ago. And sometimes the instructions change because the platforms change and they don't always tell us. But for the time being, here are the instructions for how you would find even the number of peak concurrent views if it's a live streaming thing, or the number of views of a recorded program. So that's a really wonderful thing, and many kudos to my fellow data coordinators who put that together. It's wicked cool. It's saving a lot of people a lot of time. It's saving all our butts. So really good stuff. Now, as we scroll down here again, here's some examples of what are programs and what are self-directed activities. Here are some FAQs that I've received. Most of these FAQs are in the spreadsheet as well, with the exception of co-hosting and how you count attendance. So that information is on the website exclusively. And the definitions are here at the bottom. So what is a program and what is a pre-recorded program and what's a self-directed activity? So those are here on the LibGuide available to you. But let's hop out of here and actually go to the spreadsheet. So, oh my gosh, finally, I apologize for talking so much, but here finally is the spreadsheet. I just downloaded it. I'm going to make sure that I enable editing from my download. Now I have to tell you, I have protected this sheet so you cannot mess with most of it, all right? I apologize. If you really need to mess with it, talk to me and I'll send you an unprotected sheet. But right now you cannot change anything on this definitions page. Again, here it's just a reminder, what are our formats? What are our ages? What do you mean by attendance and views? When am I counting them? After 7 days. And here's that link. So that Google spreadsheet we were just looking at with all of the guidance on how to find things, it's right there in this tool. Again, here are the examples. What's a program? FAQs, definitions. So the same stuff that was on the LibGuide, I copied and pasted here. That's in your definitions tab. Next is annual totals. I'm going to make this a little bigger so you guys can see it better. Okay, so the annual totals, and I apologize, this is something else I'm going to change in version 3. They're not really annual totals, they're just totals, right? So whatever you have entered in the spreadsheet is going to add up here. So if you are concerned about dates, whether you're looking at a month or whether you're looking at a fiscal year or a calendar year, be really cognizant of what you're looking at, right? So these totals are everything included in the spreadsheet. They're not broken out by calendar year or fiscal year. So I'm going to change that terminology with the next version. But these are the totals that you're going to use in your state annual report, and you can use them in your summer reading report for Kim. This page totals automatically. You can't mess with it, right? You actually cannot hand type anything on this page. It will calculate for you. And if you click on these little things that are zeros right now, you'll see up here in the formula bar what the formula is, and it's pulling data from this track in spreadsheet tab right down here. But these first 3 questions for each age group are really about the summer reading program. Another change I'm going to make is in my head, I abbreviate summer reading program as SRP. And I mistakenly assumed that everybody else does the same thing. You may call your summer reading program something else altogether. But SRP, for the purposes of this spreadsheet, is a summer reading program. And so these questions would feed into your summer reading program report that you send to Kim. And I talked with her, we have conferred, and as you're tracking things in the spreadsheet, here's how you're going to report them back to her. Number of programs and activities, off-site programs, and then attendance. So those are the summer reading options here. And then you'll see this format on this particular totals sheet mirrors what you're going to find in the annual report. Again, grouped by age. You'll see number of programs here, and then attendance and views is here. So as we go down, there's different age group, right? Here's the teens. I'm going to scroll down. There's the grown-ups. Here's the all ages. Here are the sums. And this is just kind of fun if you wanted to look at them, and see how they grow over time. And then here's your self-directed activities right down here. So you'll see on the annual report, self-directed activities are their own separate section in the annual report. You can almost copy and paste them right in. That's a great way to go. Okay, track in spreadsheet. So here's what it looks like. I'm just going to put a thing in here to show you how I imagined it would work. You do actually need to put a date in there, an actual date using some kind of common or normal date format. I think that's going to help you in terms of sorting, and that will certainly help going forward as I try to make improvements and get you some monthly stats. So make sure you're using a real date, not just like Tuesday the 1st. Summer reading program, it's either a yes or a no. You can leave it blank. If it's a no, that's okay. But if it is a summer reading event, make sure that you are clicking off yes, so that it will get counted in those formulas and get swept up and included. If it says anything other than yes in that column, it's not going to get counted. So this is a very important column for summer reading. Then for your format, you are going to pick, but dang, this is really small. Let's see if we can blow that up. Okay, so you're going to pick one of those formats, right? On-site, off-site, live, virtual, pre-recorded, on demand, or self-directed activity. This story time we're going to say was in person. Someday when we're able to do that, we're going to pick our ages. Because it was an in-person program, I'm going to give a head count here. We had 24 in attendance. I'm going to leave this live virtual thing blank because it was an in-person on-site program. I did not record it, so there are no views, and it was not a self-directed activity, so I'm not going to put any participants. So there I've got my 24 people, and here, because it was a summer reading event, this column will sum up all of the participants and attendees. So then let's say we did a story time tomorrow. And this is also summer reading, but this one is going to be a live virtual program, same ages. I'm going to leave attendance for in-person programs blank because this was in fact a live virtual program, and I had the cameras on and everybody told me how many people were there, and I know that there were 18 parents, caregivers, kids in that one. So again, the summer reading program column here. Now let's take a peek at how our totals changed. Ooh, look, the big totals changed. I love it. But as we scroll up to the children, here it automatically calculated number of summer reading programs and summer reading attendance, automatically calculating here the number of programs and videos that we put up, and here automatically calculating attendance. So that's why this is pretty cool. It just automatically does it for you. And then here's the version tally by hand. If you do want to print this out, let's see, here's what it would look like when you print it. I think it's going to be a little small. You're going to have tiny handwriting or something, but this was the one way to squish it all onto one piece of paper. So that gets you one piece of paper. But really, this version of tracking it in the spreadsheet is going to save you the most time. So as I mentioned, there are libraries that are doing hundreds of programs per year. This spreadsheet is set up to automatically calculate up to 5,500 programs. But you may want to even keep different versions of it. It's your tool, so you guys use it however you want to use it, right? If you want to keep 3 different versions of it, one in children's, one in YA, one in adults, and then smush the data together at the end of the year, rock on, it's yours. You can do what you want with it. If you want to upload it to Google Sheets, you can do that. Be aware that the protection will not transfer to Google Sheets. They have different ways for how you protect data. So that does open you up to the possibility of accidentally messing with a formula. I do recommend, if you plan on uploading this to Google Sheets, that whoever uploads it, goes in and protects the sheets again in Google, so that nothing gets messed up or deleted or lost. If you've got a server, throw it on the server and everybody's entering data in the same place, however you want to do it. Okay, that's one version of it. And I want to show you this pre-filled version. So I played around and entered a whole bunch of data to see how this would work, which is how I discovered that the filtering was not working correctly. But you'll see here I've got some really robust totals. I have had fun seeing how the total formulas change, the all ages, here just seeing over the course of this entire period, how those sums add up, how my self-directed activities are working. But let's talk about how we actually play with this data, because I'm concerned that I don't have a built-in way for you to get monthly stats. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to play with monthly stats. Right now, this is sorted by program date. Okay, so this is all chronological by the date of the program. If you really want to, you can sort it alphabetically by the program name. You can select specific programs if you want to, using these filters. We're going to go ahead and clear all of these filters. So that's an option. I am going to put them in chronological order. Summer reading. So you can see I have entered in programs for this calendar year, 2021, just so we would have some data to work with. And again, this is where you can play with it however you want. You may want to load all of your annual reporting year data in here. So that would be July 1st to June 30. You may want to keep it that way. You will probably want to grab a snapshot of what these annual totals look like on June 30th, so that you can then load them right into your annual report. And one way to do that is just, let's just copy all of this data. I'm probably telling you something you already know, but we're going to copy it into a new spreadsheet. And when you copy it, make sure that you are pasting the values and not just pasting, right? So you're pasting the values so that it comes as a number. If I do it a different way and just paste it, it comes with all the formatting, but it comes with a funky formula, right? And that formula may not work and it may break over time. So make sure that you are, when you paste it, you can either paste special and do values here. My favorite is just to this one, paste values, and that takes care of it. So that's the way to grab a little snapshot. No, we don't want to save it as of June 30th. But because your summer reading activities are probably branching to fiscal years and to annual report years, there's going to be a little funkiness in your dates, okay? So however you want to handle that is up to you. If it were me, I think what I would do is capture the annual reporting year, so July 1 to June 30. I would grab my totals, and then I think I would probably hang on to anything that was a summer reading program through June, and I would probably actually delete or move that other old data to a different copy of the spreadsheet, and then go forward, get my summer reading program stuff, send that to Kim, and then I would probably delete anything that happened prior to June 30. So it's a little complicated time-wise, but hopefully that will make sense. I mean, again, manage it however you want to manage it. If you want multiple copies of this, please do, go for it. If you want to add a column in here that says, however you want to do it, included in monthly report, you can add columns, you can format this track and spreadsheet page however you want. That option is there for you. What else do I want to show you? So for instance, if we wanted to get a monthly report, let's see, there are a couple options you can do. You can do this date filters thing, and you can say, give me things between January 1st and January 31st. So basically show me all the programs that happened in January 2021. That's what it's filtered down to. These are not summer reading, obviously, because it's January. But if you want, then you can sort these by the format. More likely, you're going to sort them by the age. So you've got your teens grouped together, you've got your adults, and you've got your kids here. Another option is that you can filter this so you're just seeing teen programs that happened in January. You've got your attendance counts here. And if you go ahead and select all of those and you look way down at the bottom here, it'll tell you the sum. So you don't even have to pull out the calculator. Please don't pull out the calculator. Let Excel do the work for you. And you'll see the sum of the programs here. You'll see that there were also four programs, or you can do the same thing. You select 4 of those live virtual programs and it counts that there were 4 of them. So I think that's an option for getting monthly stats. The different way to do that, because Excel has multiple ways of doing it, is that you would just select January here and you would get the same thing for your teens. Sorry, let's clear all of those filters. Clear everything. Let's say we wanted to get everything that happened in the first quarter of 2021. That's one way to do it. And you see here now we're getting January, February, and March programs. I want to go ahead and sort these. I want just the little kids programs. Great, we did 3 toddler story times, live virtual programs. I'm going to select that. I'm going to see we had 141 total people attending those live toddler story times over the course of that quarter. So that's kind of a workaround for how you would get those monthly numbers or quarterly or whichever date period you want to use. That's how you can manipulate this data to do it. And you'll just use clear the filters when you're done, or you're going to confuse yourself. I also wanted to show you how you would enter. We did an in-person on-site program. And here, let's say we did, nope, I want to do on-site. They alphabetize a little differently. It's a little funky. You got to pay attention. So here's an example of how you would enter something. So say it's that folk songs on the lawn. We had people who were there in person. We did a head count and we had 55 people who were there that afternoon for the concert who were live. And we knew that there were people who weren't going to be able to make it in person. So we also live streamed it on our Facebook page. And I got a metric for that after the fact and saw how many live concurrent viewers there were. So I went ahead and put 42 people who watched the live virtual program of that. And then we posted a recording on our Facebook page, and we happened to notice that after 7 days, 34 people had viewed that particular recording of the concert. So this is how you would enter the data for something that was both in person and streamed and recorded. You can count all of that. And in fact, it all totals up in your annual totals here too. It all comes together. It's like magic. It's very cool. A question in the chat, can you copy and create a new file? Totally, yes. And that may be the easiest way to manage it, is maybe you're doing a fiscal year 21 copy of the spreadsheet, and then on July 1st, you start a fiscal year 22 copy of the spreadsheet. I think that's a great way to manage it. And as you're pulling together your summer reading data, you can actually copy and paste all of that data into a new version of the spreadsheet and get the totals. So there are many options available to you. It's just a matter of using Excel and using the functionality of the software to provide you with the data that you need. So I'm putting an Excel tool in your hands, and you get to do however you want with it and whatever you like with it. I hope that you come up with something creative. And as I mentioned, it can be a living document, and I do want to make some improvements to it over time. So if you've got suggestions, please send them to me, because if it's something that's going to make your life easier, it's probably going to make somebody else's life easier too. So I am always interested in improvements, upgrades, however we're going to do that. So that's all I've got for you. If you do have questions, please drop them in the chat. But I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover with you today. And as a reminder, I am going to send everybody an email around 1 o'clock today. So you will have links to where to find this online. You'll also get an evaluation form. And I appreciate your input on the evaluation as well, so that I can make this a better webinar in the future. What worked for you and what didn't. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to close all this down. I'm going to stop sharing. And I will see you again another day, hopefully. Take care. Bye-bye.